This is Cali X Boxing 2.0, and this is HCP X. Put your X up. If you're listening to this in the archive, put the X below. If you're listening to this live, I see some of you in here live. Shout out my guy JC. Shout out Nando in the building. Y'all make sure to put y'all X's up in the sky. Put them up in the comment section. And also, get going in those comments and hit that like button. You know how we do. Joyce got, boy, the juggernaut got juggernauted.
I did.
He got zinged. He got zinged. I mean, who'd have thought? Look, I said last week, earlier in the week, take the under 8.5. But dude, I'm not going to take credit for that because that's not how I saw that playing out at all. Joyce he looked extra slow against the southpaw, and I got to give Base credit because he said on the roundtable, he said this is the first time his guy's facing a southpaw since his fourth pro fight. Like, it's been a while since he faced a southpaw, and it showed because those straight lefts, D-style, he cannot get away from.
I think they were blinding him.
Those were just a magnet to his face.
Yes. Yep.
So, I mean, the straight left, the quickness of Zhang showed against Joyce, who, he's a pressure fighter. He's a guy who's going to throw a lot of punches, but he's also a guy that's hittable, right? And we've talked about that in the past, and maybe you can elaborate on your theory because I've seen your shorts on this. You said the same thing when it came to Sebastian Fundora. If we're talking about a guy's chin, what does that mean? If that's the main thing we're talking about a guy, what does that mean? You're on mute.
There we go. I want to elaborate on that a little bit. So, of course, there's guys out there that over-exaggerate when guys get hit, but he gets hit. Like, why everybody gets hit? You know what I mean? I get that. And there are times where guys show us how great their chins are, right? But it shouldn't be your first line of defense, you should have to make guys really work to land those punches. And that's where the numbers come in. Like, how many punches are your opponents throwing to land? How hard are you making them work, right? How often, and then not only landing, but and this is where watching the fight matters. Because the stats alone matter a lot, but the thing with Joyce and Fundora is that they were getting hit flush often, to the point where boxing fans were almost hyping them up. Like, I remember people would call Joyce, he's like Michael Myers. He just keeps coming. Mm-hmm. And if people are saying that, right? Because I don't know if anybody's seen Michael Myers or Jason. Like, they didn't have shields. They weren't good at dodging the stabs. Like, you know what I mean? They were getting stabbed. You couldn't kill them, and they kept coming, right? That's what made them scary. And you know what? It is scary to hit a guy, I would imagine, with everything you got, and they keep coming, right? My only argument was this, and I've always said, I'm not giving people the weather, I'm giving them the climate. In other words, I'm looking at the full picture here. Mm-hmm. Eventually, I felt this was going to happen to them. Did I think it was going to happen in back-to-back weeks with both guys? No, because I did not predict that. So I'm not going to take credit for a prediction I didn't make on that specific fight. You know what I mean? But I didn't think Zhang was going to be the one to stop Joyce. I didn't. Or Fundora. I honestly thought it was going to happen to both guys when they reach the title fight. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was going to be Jamal or Tim Zhu that was going to do that to Fundora. You know what I mean? I thought in Joyce's case, it was going to be an Anthony Joshua or a Wilder or a Fury. I didn't think it was going to happen before they got there. But am I shocked? No. Surprised, but not shocked.
Okay. I want to piggyback over what you just said.
Yeah.
Are we in a weak A-side era? Just based off of guys not sharpening their skills enough with the inactivity. And we'll talk more about inactivity when it comes to Errol Spence later in the show. But are guys just simply not active enough? And this is I saw Caleb Plant's trainer, Breadman Boxing, on Twitter say this yesterday when talking about this and talking about Fundora. It's like, this is a high skill sport. So if you're not in there actively working on your skill consistently, then your skills start to diminish, right? And underdogs start to take advantage of this, because when we talked about Fundora, he was an 11-1 favorite. Yep. And we had Joyce was a 9-1 favorite. That's not me. Like, that's a pretty big favorite. These style back-to-back weekends.
Yes.
Back-to-back weekends. So what you said is, we expected Fundora's chin to come unlocked later on in his career. We expected, or I did anyway, I'll say it to myself, Joyce, the same thing. Maybe we expected that further along the line. So are we just building these guys up too much? And I said it yesterday, like, I think we're in a heavyweight era in particular where we don't have any great heavyweights. I don't think we do. I think we're in a weak heavyweight era in which the good heavyweights at the top are looking great because they're against more average guys. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of good matchups to make in that top 10, 15.
You know what supports your argument?
I could see this guy beating that guy, and then this guy coming back and beating that guy. 100%. I don't think anybody goes through that undefeated.
Yeah, to support your argument, baseball. So this is a sport where they play multiple times. Now, Grant, I need to say this before Jackass is like, you want boxers to box 160? No, that's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But in baseball, in order for them to get sharp, what do? They have spring training, then they have a preseason, and then they start the regular season, right? Okay, a pitcher, he's out for a while, especially like with an injury or whatever it is, right? They put him in the AAA league to play a couple games before he goes in there with the major league hitters. It's what they do. They got to get sharp again, right? So, yes, there's definitely – I'm not saying they got to do it that often because boxing is a more dangerous sport. You take punishment. I get that. But I'm in favor of guys fighting at least 3 times a year, and I don't think that's that crazy. I don't.
No, it's not. And – I mean, that's what the trainer was saying yesterday. He said, for a guy to reach 10 fights and then all of a sudden become a twice per year fighter, you don't have enough time. You haven't built yourself up, your skills up enough in order to move straight to that. Like a Joyce or a Sebastian Fundora. They're not putting enough work in early, and then they're not putting enough work in throughout their career. And it's not normal. This is not normal. This is where we're at. This part-time era is not normal. And because of that, I think the favorites, the A sides, are more prone to upsets. And are we propping up fighters, are we doing it in a manufactured way, an artificial way? And I'll give you an example. Joyce, okay, he loses to who? He loses to Zhang. Zhang, if you remember correctly, he loses to Hrgović, right? Many people felt he won the fight, right?
Close fight.
Close fight could go either way. But he was the 8th guy to be offered the Hrgović fight. Do you remember that? 7 other guys turned down that fight, that mandatory to fight Hrgović, until Zhang said, look, I'm going to come in. I'm going to fight this fight. And he fights the fight, and he arguably beats Hrgović. Another guy, Denzel Bentley, who fought yesterday. What happened? He fought Janibek. Many guys turned down a Janibek fight, including Boo Boo Andre turned it down twice before a guy like Denzel Bentley steps in and says, I'll fight the fight. I'll go over there and fight the fight. And he looks good for much of the fight. He loses, but he conducts himself well. And we leave the fight saying, maybe Janibek's not that good. And we said the same thing about Hrgović after the Zhang fight. But what it turns out is maybe Denzel Bentley, although the guy not being propped up artificially, is a good fighter. Maybe Zhang all along has been a better fighter than Joyce, possibly Hrgović. Possibly he's the guy who we accidentally figure out by just making fights that these are the guys that are supposed to be built up, right? And that's what I say. When you take fights off of paper and put them into reality, you accidentally find things out. And we may be accidentally finding out that Zhang, quite possibly, is the next star at the heavyweight division. He did over 13 million views. Over 13 million people in China viewed this fight yesterday. at 5 a.m. in China. All right,
Man.
they're over 13 million. D-style. We got fighters, American fighters here in America that are doing 100,000 viewers on Showtime.
Prime
We got
time.
a dude over in China doing over 13 million.
In prime time, by the way, and like world title fights.
And he's doing that at 5 a.m. in China. Now, China has more people. Granted, I get it, but that's still a lot of people to reach, and the NBA gets that, right? But
well, what's the population of China? Like 2 billion or 1.5 billion?
It's up there. I think 1.5 billion. But that's
United States is almost 500,000. So let's say 1, 2, 3. Let's say it takes 5 United Stateses for one China. Well, okay, let's be generous. 200,000 times 5. Hey, you're still short like 12 million people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, you're like, so even if you take like population per viewer, it's still better than us.
Yeah, no, it is. And I understand people saying, but how do you monetize that? And you can't monetize that as well in America. All I'm saying is that guy has a lot of reach in China. All right. That's all I'm saying. And you put that guy in with Tyson Fury now, you put him in with Anthony Joshua now. Now we're talking, and we got a southpaw who it looks like has a hell of a chin. Hrgovic, Joe Joyce, and they didn't put a dent in his chin at all. And he's a southpaw who has decent skill. All I'm saying, like, and before I get to that, super chat, Chauncey Pearls, appreciate you, $4.99. Calix D Styles, I'm in Colorado having some bomb barbecue. Who has better barbecue, Texas, Louisiana, or Colorado? I've had it all, and I gotta say, Texas has some great barbecue. Louisiana still has the best food, point blank, period. Soul food, seafood, but Texas has that incredible barbecue. I'm pretty sure you co-sign that.
100%. So the Cowboys started, man. Come on. Ranches and shit. I'm just saying. Okay. Now, the only barbecue that they don't have better is ribs. But aside from that, pork, any other type of barbecue, Texas got it.
And this is the
ribs. I think Louisiana has better
ribs. Right here, according to Ring Magazine. And this is before yesterday's fight. Joe Joyce was number 5, number 4 challenger. All right, so you got Usyk, Fury, Wilder, Joshua. Joyce was the top 5. And Zhilei Zhang was not in there. But now he is, obviously. How would you shake this up after that fight? Because I simply just replaced Zhang and put him in Joyce's spot because I jump Ruiz. I jump him over.
First off, why is Dillian White still there, bro?
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
I would remove him. I would remove Luis Ortiz as well. Luis Ortiz hasn't looked that good at all. I would have Baby Anderson somewhere 9 or 10 at least. That's me. But yes, I agree. Zhang should be at least 4 or 5. I would just put him I would put him 4. I would still keep Joyce in the top 10, but he would drop, bro, like 8 or something like that. Now, you just made a statement that Zhang has proven he's got a good chin. And I'm glad you made that statement because Zhang is outboxing these guys. He's not. You see, what stood out about the Joyce fight with Dubois? Dubois was beating him pillar to post that whole fight, right? And people were impressed, and they should have, I guess, because he kept taking shot after shot, and then he knocked the guy out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But and this guy from round 1, he's letting the harder shots, and he proved he's got a chin because, of course, in boxing you get hit, and when he did get hit, he took the punches very well, right? Mm-hmm. But Zhang, he didn't need to, like a boxer doesn't need to take punishment over and over again to prove to us he has a chin, okay? Take the shots that matter, obviously, but more importantly, a boxer needs to like at least get the guard up. You know what I mean? Like at least be first. At least use your offense as the defense. At least like there's things you could do even if you don't have a Mayweather or Pernell Whitaker level of defense. There's things you could do that make you effective in the long run, right? And that's true with any sport. Like. I don't know if they still play the same, but I remember I would watch the Warriors, and they weren't very defensively sound, but they kept a quick tempo. They kept throwing threes. If they got in a rhythm with the 3-pointers, it kind of forced the other team to try to score 3-pointers, and so their percentages were going down. Whatever, right? There's things you could do, right? Like if that help you with quote unquote defense, even if it isn't moving your head and getting off the center line, and because those things are hard when you're tired and exhausted, and if you're thinking about it, like, I got to get out of the center line, like you're gonna get clipped. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's those are things you should already naturally have. But Zhang proved to me is the truth. He was trending on social media on that side of the world over there.
Yeah.
Imagine if he wins the heavyweight championship, or he's just in a fight. He wants to fight Fury in China. Dude, that's a big fight over there.
Hrgovic said yesterday he'd go over there to fight him in a rematch.
Damn.
So
shout out to Hrgovic. Shit. Damn.
I want to address this question by Nando. I thought
usually people dodge the bullet and they're gone. You know, I'm just saying.
I thought we weren't going to toss dudes out after one loss. What happened? And I agree. We shouldn't. And it goes back to what I just said. I think the heavyweight division is a bunch of good fighters. I think it's deep with good fighters they each have serious flaws, right? And maybe we can say Fury and Usyk are the clear top two. If there are, candidates for great fighters, those would be the two, right? I think everybody else is seriously flawed in certain ways. Joe Joyce should not be tossed because Joe Joyce could be, I could see him like taking Deontay Wilder's punishment and then landing and clipping Deontay Wilder with some shots. Like I don't think Deontay Wilder just goes in there and steamrolls him. Same thing with AJ. Like I still think Joyce versus AJ is a good fight. So sure. I think Joyce has guys in the top 7, 8 who he can beat. And I think it's very much a stylistic thing. But when we look at, we still have to.
It was very
circumstantial. Judge fighters based off of certain criteria, right? According to their peers. So when I see Joyce yesterday, and I was thinking before that fight, maybe he is a Mike Myers, Freddy Krueger type guy. Maybe he's a guy who just go in there and his style just is bad for everybody. That's what I was saying yesterday. And then I watched this fight and it's not so much. So
that doesn't exist.
Lower that ceiling a little bit for Joe Joyce, right?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to throw the guy away. In fact, I'm going to be honest. I think, yes, that like there's a real zero effect in terms of the O thing, like losing the O, protect the O, like that's been a problem. Like there's no doubt about it. But I think we're slowly like drifting away from it, to be honest with you. Like I think we're slowly getting away from it.
I hope so.
I just think it's like a slow burn, but I honestly don't think people were quote unquote throwing Joyce away because the jury was still out on Joyce. Like yes, he had to win over Dubois, but I always said, ironically, the same thing happened to him in this fight. Like where the punch was a delicate place, and it was just very circumstantial with the orbital. You know what I mean? It's not like Zhang messed up his brain either, right? So we can't say he doesn't have a chin, or or something like that. But
he's still a likable. He's still a likable, marketable dude. I mean, everybody was saying it yesterday. Like his post-fight press conference came off way better than AJ's losses, right?
Oh, for sure. But I just think he's going to be okay. I think fighters getting clowned. Look, fighters getting clowned when they lose, and that's nothing new. The memes that's always going to be a thing. And people only dislike it when it's a fighter they like, but when they don't bat an eyelash, it's a fighter they don't like. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is.
Fun fighters are marketable. Fun fighters. I mean, vulnerable fighters. Now Joyce.
Yeah.
You had guys thinking Joyce was some sort of boogeyman, Freddy Krueger. I thought possibly he could be that guy. And then now not so much. So now guys are going to be like, I'll fight Joe Joyce now. He's 38 years old. He looked a little bit slow, sluggish. I'll fight that fight. And then he'll sneak up on somebody, right? Like, it would not surprise me at all to see Joe Joyce get 1 or 2 top 6, 7 victories at heavyweight. It wouldn't surprise me at all to see that, right? And I just think there's a pathway forward for Joe Joyce. He's gonna get fights now. He's gonna make a ton of money still. Like, those opportunities are still gonna be there for him. What happened yesterday though is a ton opened up for Zhilei Zhang. a ton, because if you have a guy doing this, and if people can't read this right here,
but so many things could happen, bro.
This is him on Instagram saying over 13 million, 13.2 million watched me at 5 a.m. in China.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, another thing, you just to kind of say this, it's a nitpick, but that's not 13 million people. That's 13 million televisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Sure, like a lot of people watch it by themselves, but a lot of people watch it with others, right? Who's to say there wasn't a group of 4 or 5 dudes on some of those TVs watching that fight? You know what I mean? Like who's to say there wasn't a husband and a wife watching a fight? Who's to say it wasn't a dad with his son watching the fight? So it could easily be double that, easily.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but like, what could happen? And it goes back to your point about activity. We have limited data when it comes to these fighters. So we could discern as much as we can and use our eye test as much as we can with these fighters. But we already know that, like, Zhang could end up fighting Dubois, and then Dubois can knock him out, right? Just because Joyce beat Dubois doesn't mean that Zhang is going to beat Dubois. You know what I mean? Like Dubois could beat him, but if these fighters fought more often, we would see those scenarios playing out more often. Like you brought up Bentley earlier. Bentley lost a fight once, and since he gave Janibek a tough fight, people just, with the limited data, well, he lost to, I think it was Cash, was it? He lost to him, so why did Janibek struggle with him? Well, maybe he just had a bad night that night, you know? Athletes have bad nights. Athletes don't have their best night all the time. And if they only fight once a year, twice a year, right? We don't get to see them more often. And we don't get to see that play out more often, is what I'm trying to say. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I want to go on record as saying I don't want to see a rematch because there's so many good matchups to make it heavyweight. I don't want to see anything twice, especially when it was definitive, right? So I want to see Zhang fight somebody else. I want to see Joyce fight somebody else. But the main thing I want to see is Zhang, his team should not be waiting around for anybody. If this guy is doing over 13 million households in China, put this guy in a fight. Put him in a fight. Get him back in the ring in the fall.
They got that casino, that city that generates more money than Vegas over there. Remember Pacquiao fought there twice?
Is that Macau?
Macau, yeah. It's time to take Zhang over there. ASAP.
Take Hrgovic up on his offer. Fight the rematch. You want the rematch anyway. Fight the rematch and take him up on his offer. Fight it there. But due to inactivity, it's always been difficult throughout all of boxing's history to say, due to styles, like this guy would definitely beat that guy, or that guy would definitely beat that guy. But now more than ever, now it's magnified even more than ever because we have so little to go off of from certain fighters. That way, like, we look at betting odds, and if the guys who look at everything and they leave no stone unturned, and they say Sebastian Vendora is so much better than this guy Mendoza that he's 11-1 favorite, we're going to price it there.
Yeah.
And then they look at everything Joe Joyce, everything Zhilei Zhang, and say we're going to price Joe Joyce as a 9-1 favorite. These are the specialists, and they're still getting it that wrong. That just tells you where we're at. Like,
what I'll say is that I never seen an upset where the guy that was favorite that big, not that I could recall, got dominated.
Well, De La Hoya was like a 3.5-1 favorite over Pacquiao, so that's one of them. But you're right, 9-1. It was 10-1.
Not this much.
10-1. Yeah, you're right. It was.
I seen like where they lost, or even if they lost most of the rounds. But I'm talking about like from round one, like this dude was in control.
I know, and as soon as the fight started, I was kicking myself. I was like, I should have taken Zhilei Zhang plus 950 for a stoppage. I was kicking myself. I was like, I should have seen this. I should have seen
It was
it
worth like even if you just put
as soon as Base said this is his first southpaw in like a decade. I should have seen this coming, and I
it was a
should have bet.
premonition. As soon
I
as Bay
missed
said
it.
he had a dream that it was dropped, and you know what I mean. Like I'm just saying,
I missed it.
premonitions, ladies and gentlemen.
I was so mad at myself. I missed it. I missed the upset. It was
Sometimes
right
our
there.
ancestors put dreams in our head to help us out, and we don't listen. Okay, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Look, big win for Zhang. I always like. I don't know what it is. I like seeing fighters from countries that aren't known for being boxing powerhouses. I'm all for those fighters succeeding because it's going to help. It's going to inspire some kids over there. And they're going to take up boxing and they're going to go to the gym. And we may see them in like 20 years or so, right? Like that happens. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And for those that don't think that's the case, look, I interviewed an 18-year-old, Kayla Gomez, who saw Katie Taylor and some of the other amateurs in the 2012 Olympics, and that inspired her to get into boxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those things are very, very real, right? So and Marlene Esparza, by the way, but I think it is a good thing. I like seeing fighters from countries that aren't because it could potentially open up a brand new market for us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Macau, it's a gambling city. A lot of high rollers go over there. You can make a fight over there. You know what I mean? Like I'm just saying. And if I don't blame Zhang for calling out Fury for a fight over there. Because what is he, 39, 40?
Yeah.
He's old. He needs a shot now.
And the reason I want to highlight those betting odds is there's a fight coming up in 6 days if people don't know about it. It's Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia. And Tank Davis is a 2.5 to 1 favorite. So all these people out there saying, I just can't see Ryan winning. I'm just telling you, Tank is not that big of a favorite against Ryan. And they've already priced in the rehydration clause. They priced all of that in. So if you think that Ryan's just like right, there's no way he can win this fight. We've been seeing much bigger upsets as of recent. We saw much bigger upsets in
Put your bets
2022.
now, by the way, because I have a feeling it's gonna drop the closer we get to the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already dropped this week. It went from minus 280, it's down to minus 240. So I'm just telling you, like these people out there saying Ryan can't beat Tank. Ryan's not going to beat, like, I would be shocked if Ryan beats Tank. I'm just telling you, it would not be that shocking, particularly when you take into consideration recent history in boxing. Like, I'm just telling you.
It does.
I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
telling you. So, I mean, the big takeaway here is the heavyweight division, I think, is it's wide open to me. It's wide open. I think it's wide open. I think any of these guys can beat any of the other guys. Styles make fights.
I do think Fury is like above. It's like Fury, Usyk, like right below him, and then it's like everybody
three
else.
tiers. Tier. That third tier can go any kind of way.
I believe so.
I don't know. I don't necessarily. I don't know if Fury's unbeatable. I don't know. I don't know that.
No, I'm not saying he's unbeatable, but I think I would favor him significantly against all these guys.
Yeah.
Me personally.
So we have an anniversary today. And it's I want to share this. This is a video I dropped. And let me share it real quick. All your time waiting. And it would help if I put sound on. Let me get the sound on real quick.
I hear it. I was able to hear it.
Let me get this sound. anniversary of Errol Spence's last fight, 365 days. And not only has he not fought in those last 365 days, D-Style, nothing scheduled.
Nothing.
And I want to help people out because I know there's going to be there might be some whataboutism pop up in the chat. Anytime I do one of these videos, and I did the video on Twitter, and they said, what about Bud? It doesn't work here because we've criticized Bud's inactivity too. So you're not going to come over here with what about Bud? And Bud has nothing to do with Errol Spence not fighting in the past 365 days. He's
not fighting Bud, so.
And then car accidents don't work anymore. I mean, come on. The guy.
What about Bud, huh?
What about Bud? What
I've
about
always
Bud?
said this,
what
bro.
About Bud?
If your first response or criticism of your favorite fighter is, well, what about? That's not a good defense, bro. Like, it just isn't. You know. By the way, like, didn't y'all's parents like ever like slap you in the mouth for saying that? You know. Like when I would do something stupid and I try to like, and I'll be like, what about Robert? You know, my brother, like I ain't talking about Robert. Pah! Like, you know what I mean? Like what the fuck are you talking about? I ain't talking about that. I'm telling you, right? Like, do you remember? Like, I'm sure you were told this as a kid, Calix. Oh, so what if when he said, well, he told me to do it, or oh, he did it too. Like, oh, so if he jumps off if he tells you to jump off a bridge, you're gonna do it too, right? What does that even mean, bro? Like I just don't. Okay, they're both inactive. That's the only point you're proving.
You can't.
But I'm hearing narratives, by the way. I'm hearing narratives out there that are saying, "Oh, Canelo can't go a whole year without fighting. It's mandatory." Yeah, he can. Like, I mean, I've seen these inactive fighters that are not only not fighting mandatory, they're not fighting at all. Like dudes are talking like tomorrow the WBC is gonna mandate Benavidez to fight Canelo when like Jamal hasn't fought in 700 days, and the last time he fought was not a mandatory. So who knows when the fuck he fought a mandatory, right? Like, I mean, this is crazy. But let me tell you something. I don't want to hate too much. You know what? You know, I always said that the best defense is like knocking a dude out because for the rest of the rounds, you don't get hit at all.
You were wrong.
That's not the best defense. I was 100% wrong, right? Because let me tell you a fact, and no one can dispute this fact. Nobody. For the last year, rolling year, 365 days, Errol Spence and Jamal Charlo, not like, what were you talking about? Stevenson the other week? Like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? You know how many times he got punched in the face or body or anywhere? 0%. 0% hit. Didn't take a punch. Didn't lose a round. Facts. Did they not lose a round? Am I lying?
Facts.
Did they lose a fight?
Nope.
No. So like that's the best defense in boxing.
If you don't fight, you don't get hit. It's the best defense. And that's fact. It's facts. But what? 365 days. In all seriousness, this is embarrassing. It's embarrassing to go a year without fighting and then expect to be in a super fight in your next fight. You can't build a super fight if you're not fighting. You simply can't.
Well, and then he's going to fight Thurman, like more likely. Like,
there's a stat floating out there that before Hagler and Hearns fought each other, or may have been Hearns. No, it was Hearns versus Leonard. In the 3 years before they fought each other, I think they fought a combined, or the 5 years before, they fought a combined 30-something times. These guys in the past 3 years have fought a combined 5 times. You can't build a super fight this way. You just can't. You can't build a super fight this way.
Can't do it.
And you can't.
But like the thing is though, like here's the thing. He couldn't fight once the last 12 months, like one time, I mean, he couldn't do it one time. Fight a mandatory something, like anybody. Because I remember when he was bragging that he doesn't do tune-ups. Well, I'm glad you don't do tune-ups. You only fight like once every 16 months. I'm glad you're like, oh, Thank you, Errol, for not doing tune-ups. Like, you only fight once every 16 months, bro. Like, I don't do tune-ups. Like,
we'll take some tune-ups to get you in the ring. I mean,
I don't do tune-ups. Well, the mechanic shop is never open. Like how are you gonna do tune-ups?
And then, I mean, it's like we saw Danny last year, and then Danny disappears. What's the plan? What's the overall plan?
Danny's the same guy, by the way, that didn't want to fight Harrison, bro. Okay? Compare that to Tim Tszyu, who said, put that motherfucker in the ring. Right? One's acting the way you don't want fighters to act. Okay? He's over there crying. I don't care. I know what people are going, he has a mental illness style. Don't be like that. Okay? Like, I'm not talking about the tears or him talking about, I'm talking about him, when I say crying, I'm talking about him like complaining that he can't get fights and he wants a big fight. He's entitled to a big fight and all this other dumb shit he was talking about. Okay, then you had another dude that just said, put him in the ring. Are you sure? That's a tough fight. Put him in the ring.
Fellas, right? There's a reason that they're having problems making this fight is the economics aren't working. You have two fighters who are expecting to get paid like primetime grade A fighters.
Yeah.
And they don't generate that type of money. They just don't. They're artificially propped up. And I like Bud. That's the thing. Like, I liked Errol. I liked Errol before the Errol sexuals liked them. I liked them before these dudes who are coming after me liked them. And I'm looking at it now. I'm looking at the picture. I'm saying this fight is spoiled. It's still going to do good. Like, I mean, it's still going to do 250,000, whatever the buys are going to do. I don't know. It's still going to be a meaningful fight for boxing fans. That part doesn't go away. But the marination process, and I'll play this video on a separate podcast later in this week because we'll have several podcasts this week. But when I see Sampson go on G Funky's podcast and say, we marinated Plant versus Benavidez. We marinated it for 5 years. When they say the quiet stuff out loud, that's when they don't care anymore. Like, it's just, they don't care about the market anymore. Maybe they feel like the market is too dumb. I don't know. But when they openly say we marinated Plant versus Benavidez for 5 years so we can make it a bigger fight, and then it's not even that big of a fight. It does what, 140,000.
Yeah, but here's, I get, because look, Sampson is coming from a manager, because that's really what he is. If we get down to the nitty gritty,
he's a manager.
He's a manager. Okay, he advises, and he's kind of like he's also a promoter, but he's usually like the second tier promoter in these cards, which is fine. But he does his thing, right? But the fact is, Plant wanted to fight Benavidez. Okay, and so when Benavidez was on my podcast last year or the year before, I think it was. Man, it's been a while.
2 years ago.
And he says, I asked him the question. Hey, Plant said they offered you guys a fight and you guys declined it. And he looks at the camera and he says, oh, come on, you guys really believe that? And I believe David. I thought to myself, David wouldn't turn down a fight with Plant, right? But it turns out that, Plant was right all along. You guys didn't want to fight him at that time, right? That's just true. And then people might say, but that's smart. That's how you make a mega fight. That's how you do this and that. First of all, I would question very seriously if that fight was a mega fight. It's number one. Okay. Like, I don't think it was. And I think the reason it happened was because Plant no longer had an O to protect anymore and got very aggressive about trying to make fights because he wanted to get his get back with Canelo. Right.
Yep.
That's what helped make that fight happen. It would keep it real. Okay. It wasn't the genius of Samsung or some shit. All right. The fight was and I'm glad they made it. It was the right fight to make. Okay. No doubt about it. But it should have happened when they were both world champions. Okay. And if promoters are thinking this way, if they're prolonging fights, and think about all the things that I've heard, not just Samsung in fairness, a lot of De La Hoya included, they've said very questionable things that always remind me, that's why one of my best friends that used to watch the fights with me all the time is done with boxing, doesn't want to watch it anymore. Okay, that's why. When De La Hoya says things like, it was dumb to do the Bivol fight. I mean, why would you put Canelo in a situation where he could lose? Yeah, De La Hoya, you're kind of the problem, and I'm kind of glad you're not running Canelo's career anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because I see what you're doing. Like, because if that's your philosophy, right, it makes you question, rightfully so, how you're handling Munguia, okay, for starters, and a lot of your fighters, you're not handling them very well, right?
Zepeda.
Yes, Zepeda. There's a lot of fighters that I look at and I say, yeah, he ain't handling them to the best of his ability, right? Mm-hmm. He's coddling them. He's taking too much care of them. And then he's criticizing a promoter because he put Canelo in a tough fight. Because nobody knows who Bivol is, and you're going to put him in that fight that he could lose? That's stupid. No, I want a sport where the guy nobody knows gets his shot, okay? That's the type of sport I want. I'm glad Bivol got his opportunity to just. Why wouldn't you be happy for Bivol to have a spotlight and be involved in a big fight? Like whatever an asshole says, oh, he doesn't get to do it because he's Russian and nobody knows who he is. Like that's like a dumb way to look at things. You know what I mean? And it's very backwards thinking. And with Samson, I get it from his perspective, but fights not getting done when we want them, okay, is one of the main reasons why the sport is suffering.
It's not my job to be empathetic about any of that. It's not. I'm not empathetic towards Samson's side of looking at things. There's a checks and balances of boxing, right? It's promoters and managers obviously are looking out for their fighters and their best interests, and they're trying to put them in the most comfortable situations possible for the most monetary value.
Look,
and
I'll tell you
it's our job to push back on that and say, no. This is the fight I want to see. I don't care what the perceived obstacles are. This is the fight that I want.
Yeah, because you know what? If guys, and we just talked about it earlier, they fight more often, okay, we're going to get more combinations of fights happening.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see the whole there's no triangle theory in boxing happen right before our very eyes.
Yep.
If fighters are active and fighting often, right? Because if David Benavidez would have fought Plant 5 years ago or 3 years ago. It didn't have to be 5. It could have been 3 years ago, literally, right? They could have unified, all right? First of all, the winner of that fight would have had that experience under their belt, right? And would have been better suited and better prepared for Canelo Alvarez, right? Mm-hmm. So all I'm saying is, when I look at boxing, I'm looking at the sport as a whole, right? And I wanted to benefit a multitude of fighters from all promotional outfits, not just Samson's fighters. You know what I mean? Every manager is looking out for their guy. All right. Glenn Jennings, okay, great guy. He's looking out for Tim Tszyu. All right. He's going to do what's best for Tim. Right. What he's doing right now, I happen to like what it is, but he's doing it because he knows Tim and he believes Tim is better when he's active. Right. That's why he wants him active. He's not doing it because he wants to do what's best for the fans. That's just the truth, okay? But Samson's doing what he believes is best for his fighter. All managers are, right? But our job is to press the issue and make them fight each other
constantly
and often, so we could get the ball rolling, okay? It's not like once they fight, oh, what's left? What's left? The next guy. That's what's left. The next dude to 9.
And I mean, if Joe Joyce loses, we still want to see him fight. Yeah. Sebastian Fundora loses, we still want to see him fight. They're fun. And boxing is littered with dudes who lose and win the next fight and win the next one after that. And win the next
Aram has come out, bro. Aram has come out and he's admitted that he's kind of done with like rematch clauses. He still does them here and there, but he's kind of against them. He doesn't like them. And he's also like done with like weight, and maybe because he's old and he's like, I'm going to die any day now. So I got to make these fights now. Right. Yeah. But he's kind of done with that because there's been examples of fights that they marinated. Either A, never happened, or B, got fucked up in the way. Look at Juanma versus Gamboa. We all wanted that fight.
Yeah.
They were both undefeated, hot Puerto Rican, prospect, hot Cuban prospect. It should have fucking happened, but they kept playing with fire. Oh, we got to marinate it, and oh, you guys don't understand the business. Okay, let us handle the business. Like basically telling us like we're putting them in fights we know they could win to get you guys more excited for it. Mm-hmm. And then what happened? Like Salido didn't get the memo. Nobody told Salido he was supposed to lose to Juanma. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and then he takes his soul.
He took his soul. And what happened to that fight? Did we ever get to see that fight?
No.
We never got to see that fight. There's a lot of fights we didn't see.
And then they're asking, people ask, how do you know you're not over marinated? The fight was over marinated. It's simple. Like, he didn't do any genius. The fight was over marinated. It's for 0 belts. One guy had a loss two losses ago. It didn't generate as much money as it should have. The fight was over marinated. Simple. It was over. Samson's not sitting over there like some genius. He's not some genius. He over marinated the fight. He thought he marinated it perfectly, but in reality, he over marinated. David Benavidez isn't some star now. He's not. And it's shocking to me seeing so many fighters who are a decade into their career shocked that they aren't stars. It's shocking to me that more people aren't looking at this and saying, this is the first time in boxing history we haven't had an American star. And the bells aren't going off. And they should be. The reason you're having that is because of what these managers and promoters are doing. They're not putting fighters in natural. They're trying to artificially prop up these fighters instead of letting it organically build. This fight, look, why did Canelo become a star? He had a nice built-in fan base, but so does Zhilei Zhang, so does a lot of fighters. So does Chavez.
Could you imagine if Canelo, it's like Canelo and Trout. Let's say they would have like marinated their fight for like, because that's basically the equivalent of it. Like if Canelo would have said,
Golovkin Canelo third fight gate was $23 million.
Okay, well, we'll get to that because I have a point about that. This will be the equivalent. Imagine if, like, because we all knew Trout Canelo was a fight to make at 154, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody knew that. That was a unification fight. Let's go, right? But let's say Canelo would have been like, nah, Trout, we need to marinate this fight. We need to build this fight up. You know what I mean? We need to make the fight bigger. You know what I mean? Let's just imagine that. And then, like, so he goes and he fights Floyd and he loses. And then, like, Floyd has all the belts. And then he tries to make a fight with Trout, like, 2 fights later. Like, and they try to tell us that, oh, it's bigger now. It's actually a bigger fight now because, he fought, Mayweather now. So Canelo's a bigger name. So Canelo's a bigger fight. Yeah, it's not for a belt or nothing, but we built it up. You know what I mean? Like, it's bigger than it would have been back. Like, no. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's at the end of the day, especially now in the age of social media and everything, like, I honestly believe a fight's going to be as big as it's ever going to be, unless one guy, like, becomes this big megastar. Like, unless that happens, I think fights are appropriately where they're going to be. But
especially with the pay-per-view market oversaturated now and dumbed down with piracy. But my point is, I remember Oscar saying openly, we shouldn't be fighting Trout. Canelo wants this fight. I don't want it.
He said the same thing about Lara.
He said the same thing about Lara. He said the same thing about Mayweather. This fight's too early for him. It's too early for him. But Canelo consistently fights those fights, and he comes out of it. And let's say he even doesn't get the decision against the Trout or Lara. He still comes out of that as a superstar, right? And you contrast that with how they're managing a David Benavidez. It's like, how do I feel empathetic? What do I look like being empathetic to a dude who isn't getting a fight with Canelo when his manager is openly out there saying the quiet thing, saying, look, I know you wanted the plant fight 5 years ago, but I didn't give it to you. And I didn't give it to you. Why? Because I wanted my fighter to make more money. So why would I be empathetic towards that fighter not getting the fight he wants?
It's kind of like this, Alex. It's kind of like this. Do you remember when Mayweather Pacquiao happened and it was a big mega success, right? It did like 4.4. I think it ended up doing like 4.6 million, which is retarded. Like, that's amazing. Right. So it did great. Right. And I think it gave people this false sense of like, oh yeah, you're supposed to make the fans, get tired of the shit and make them wait, and they're not looking at the full picture, right? But a couple of things. In my opinion, the fight was hotter and a bigger deal when Pacquiao was knocking welterweights out and stopping Miguel Cotto, especially after he beat Margarito, right? And he was good. Vegas had him as a favorite against Floyd. Which I was hoping they did the fight because I was going to bet money on Floyd. Well, when the hell are you going to get Floyd as an underdog, bro? Right? Yeah. They had him as a betting odds favorite against Floyd after the Cotto fight. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That was a time to make it. You really believe after Marquez knocked him out and then he had those fights with Bradley and Algieri, you guys really believe that made the fight bigger? The fight was always big because that's a fight they always talked about.
It was always a 4 to 5 million.
It might have done a couple 100,000 more, if not 1 million more, if they did it at the right time.
And on top of that, you could have had a second fight and a third fight,
and you could have had a trilogy, and it would have been a better fight. And here's the other thing: since you make the fans wait, right? What happens? People have a higher expectation. You made me fucking wait. Right? It's like hooking up with a chick and she's making you wait a whole year. Right? A whole year. And she's like, oh, I don't do that. You know what I mean? Like that's what happened. Mayweather and Pacquiao threw the least amount of punches, both of them, than they ever had in a 12-round fight.
Uh-huh.
That shit was a glorified sparring session, bro. That's what that was. And you know what? What else? That gave 4.6 million people and reminded them why they just wasted their fucking money.
It pissed them off.
Like, you know how many angry people... I was going to work and people were upset about the fight. Like, they were like, that fight sucked. What the fuck happened? You know? And you got the Floyd fans. Well, Floyd is boring, so blame Pacquiao. No, I blame both of them. Mm-hmm. Right? Yes, Pacquiao should have threw more, took more chances. Absolutely. No doubt about that. Floyd should have done more too with the money, both of them, with the money they were making. Okay? Floyd's dad was telling him he looked scared. Hey, man, you fight it scared. Like, his dad told him that. Not that he was scared, but he definitely phoned it in since they were both like, let's take our money, baby. You know what I mean? So the fight wasn't done at the right time. It had a negative effect on the sport. I believe it would have done more. It would have done more, bro, okay, if they fought sooner, because even the numbers show that. Floyd Mayweather was doing better numbers against Cotto and Ortiz and around the time that he should have fought Pacquiao than he was against Maidana and those guys. You know what I mean? The exception's Canelo, but that was Canelo, right? I mean, that's a little different. But it's whatever to me. I just think people have this perception that marinating is the way to go, right? And I don't agree with that. I think overall the sport needs to start delivering when people want it. Okay.
Why would boxing fans subscribe to that? I don't understand it. Why would boxing fans subscribe to that?
Look, I'll be honest. If I was a manager, if that was my job, and I feel my guy could lose and I don't want him to lose right now, well, I might make arguments like that. Oh, no, what we should do is marinate it and wait. And, I mean, I get it. Okay? Or maybe I do feel that for my fighter, it's going to benefit him for us to wait for that fight, whatever that is. But you know what? I'm not a manager, right? I don't manage any of these fighters. So I don't care about that. I want what's best for the sport. I want what's best for the entire division. I want what's best for everybody. Right? Because I want to see as many fights as possible. You know what I mean? That's what I want. That's what we all should want, quite frankly. Like, we could have had a Plan Benavides trilogy by now. You know?
You should have had an Errol versus Bud trilogy by now. Shout out Iceman. Appreciate the super chat. 504 in the building. Appreciate New Orleans rolling through.
Could you imagine if that's how it was in the 70s? Like Ali and Frazier were like, you know what we should do? is marinate this fight. You know, you sure you want to do a fight at the Garden? They're going to title it the fight of the century. Nah, we should marinate it. You know what I mean? Let's just fight once a year. Let's have tune-ups. Let's frustrate the boxing fan, and let's do the fight somewhere down the line. Meanwhile, because that's what they're doing now, right? At welterweight, like what's happening to like Virgil and Boots. That's like keeping Foreman like from getting his shot. That's like keeping like all those contenders like getting their shot, right? And then and just because Ali and Frazier want to marinate to maximize the amount of money they're going to make down the line, right? So we lose all this history, right? Of all these great fights that both guys were involved in. Some of them they lost, some of them they won. So some of them, like in the Ali Norton fights, they felt Ali lost, but he had a trilogy with Norton. You know what I mean? He had a trilogy with Frazier, right? Those trilogies happen. I don't care what Tyson Fury says, all right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, like, you know,
the response should not be, well, 365 days, but yeah, what about this guy? It's like, dude, we talk about all those guys being inactive. We've talked about the inactivity plague in boxing in the part-time era being the biggest obstacle at building stars in the sport. It's just that simple. We're just not seeing these guys enough. And the whataboutism just isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. You have to call out. You have to be able to call out your favorite fighters for the good of the sport. You have to be able to. And the current welterweight division is the perfect litmus test in boxing. It's, if you look at that picture, that top 10, and you see like we've only had one fight in the top 10 so far this year, and we only had 3 top 10 fights last year. And on top of that, you have 6 to 7 undefeated fighters in the top 10. That signals to you that the fighters aren't fighting each other. They're just simply not fighting each other. And you have certain fans that will say, this is a talented division. Look how talented that division is. I think those are the fans that are wrong for the sport. The ones that are right for the sport are going to look at that and say, you got all those undefeated fighters. That means that those fighters are not fighting each other. That's untapped potential. You're on mute.
Imagine having like $1 million in the bank and it's there, but you're told that you can't use it. Mm-hmm. For the rest of your life, you cannot use those $1 million ever for anything. But what I want it for if I can't use it? Oh, but you could say you have it. Like, okay, but can I buy a house? No.
You can mythically spend it, just like they.
Yeah. You could like mythically spend it. You could like, you know what I mean? You could tell people what you can do with the money, but you can't use it though. You know what I mean? You could show them your bank account even. You could be like, look at what I got in my bank. You know what I mean? It'll be $1 million, smooth million, but you can't use it. Well, what good is it for me? What good is it? Even if it's true that these guys are these amazing fighters that could beat all these guys, what good does it do me if they don't actually do it?
Because I can have fun battling other grown men online by saying my guy can mythically beat your guy.
Like Pokemon, with my $1 million, right?
Like with $1 million at the lunch table, right?
Yeah. If I had $1 million that I'm not allowed to use, I can say that I could, if I was allowed to use this $1 million, I could buy that Bentley. You know what I mean? If I was allowed to use this $1 million, I could, buy that restaurant down the street. I could do it if I wanted to, and then try to flex. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying, like, bro, you still have, Tank fans are still flexing Pedraza, right?
Yeah.
Did you see Eagles tweet? He tweeted like Tank, like beating up Pedraza. It's like, yeah, people want to say Tank ain't the truth. Well, why don't y'all talk about this? And I'm like, that was 6 years ago. Like, how are you flexing a win from like?
What's funny?
How are you flexing a win from 6 years ago, bro?
It might have been the same guy, but somebody was saying Rashidi. They showed a 5-second clip of Rashidi Ellis hitting Canelo and sparring a couple of times, and then he said, "Oh, look what Benavidez did to Rashidi Ellis compared to Canelo."
What that reminded me of?
5-second sparring session.
You know what that reminded me of for real? Do you remember like the Shabransky guys? Shabransky, He knocked down Alexander Brand with 16-ounce gloves, and Ward couldn't even knock him down in a pro fight. Like, okay.
Remember Paul Spadafora?
Oh, yeah, he was beating up Floyd.
Yeah, in sparring, right? And boy, did he live off of that forever. I mean, off of sparring, off of practice. So, I mean,
are we talking about practice?
We're talking about practice.
We're talking about what happened in practice with Canelo.
The thing that's frustrating to me is dudes think that I'm just having fun with this, and I'm not. Like, I want to see Errol Spence succeed. I want to see Errol Spence become a star, and it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And you try to explain it to them and why it's not going to happen, and then they think you're some sort of hater and terrible person and Errol Spence hater. I'm trying to troll to deliver a point, and the point is you can't go 365 days without fighting, and on top of that, not scheduling anything. It just can't happen. And if you do it, you can't expect to be a star. You can't expect to be building up a fight by sitting on your ranch, as you would say, milking cows. You can't do it. You can't. You got to be out there actively promoting yourself by fighting. That's how they build fights, by fighting. And they're simply not doing that. And I was a fan of Errol Spence before the Errol Sexuals were. I'm a fan of Bud. Bud's frustrating to me. I want to see Bud more active. And it's simply not happening. It's wasted talent.
What do you say to people that tell you?
D-Style, Bud is one of the best fighters I've ever seen.
Really good, yeah.
And I mean, it's not being realized, though, to where it should have been, right? I understand Undisputed at 140 and 147. And then these dudes, I'll say something negative about Errol, and they said, oh, you need to get off of Bud's nuts. No, I'm criticizing Bud, too. They need to be doing more, all of them.
You know what's funny, though? Like, I see this happen a lot. When someone takes a position, there's people out there that just assume you feel like they kind of box everyone like in the same, right? It's like just because someone criticizes Errol, it doesn't mean like I'm one of those like hardcore Bud Crawford fans that doesn't think Bud could do any wrong. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just because someone criticizes Bud, right, doesn't mean that they're an Errol sexual. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is crazy, right? I don't know. Like, I feel like that's what boxing fans do. They kind of box people. If you feel one way about, you have a position on something, they think like you're following like a whole platform, a set of rules that you and a whole group of people follow, right? Yeah. And that's just the unfortunate part of a lot of boxing fans today. Yeah. But what do you say to people that will say the following? Hey, man, this is different times. Boxers are making a lot of money with pay-per-view now. So that's why they only fight once a year. You know, it's times are just different.
I say the only way you can build up these fighters properly is the traditional way. And on top of that, I think the people use inactivity. The main excuse I hear is for health reasons, right? It's just a different time. We need to be healthier with these fighters. The issue with that is the training camps are longer, 8 to 12 weeks, as opposed to 5 to 6 weeks. I mean, Emmanuel Stewart was a big believer in your camp should not be longer than 5 weeks. Anything else, you're wearing down the fighter. And so they're taking more punishment in these camps. They're having longer training camps when they could just be fighting, particularly guys starting off. You know, like these top-ranked fighters, they're in camps for so long early on when they should just be fighting every month, once a month. They're not taking damage in these fights. Prop up your record. Fight 12 times the first year on every undercard, top-ranked undercard. Go 12-0, and you're in your training camp less, and you're actually fighting more. But the injuries are still the same, if not more. You got more guys pulling out of fights. It's not healthier. The verdict is out. It's not healthier. It's not healthier. And on top of that, you're prolonging your career, right? So the reason a lot of these guys are having injuries, they're in their 30s. And really, you should be fighting as much as possible in your 20s and then bow out.
The body needs to adjust a little bit. Like they need to like get used to a lot of the like get into the pattern of things a little bit. But because you're right, like at the end of the day, like when guys are in there sparring and they're wearing headgear, right? People think, oh well, it's safer than the fight because they have headgear and they got big gloves and no, like their brain is taking more punishment, like for longer periods of time.
Yeah.
Like those devices help the fighters absorb shots from, it prevents them from getting cut or knocked out, right? But guess what? When there's impact in the head, even if it is a 16-ounce glove, even if it is hit with headgear, they're still taking the impacts in the head, right? So Spence is still going to the gym, he's still sparring and all that, and he's getting hit like that. He's still taking punishment. So are they really safer, right? Plus in sparring, like you're working on things and it could put you in compromised positions in sparring. So you can work on your weaknesses. So you're probably getting hit more than you would when you're fighting in an optimal way in the ring. So like, I don't know. And then if they're having long sparring, like more sparring because the training camps are longer or the more sparring to stay sharp, they call it, right? I mean, I don't know. I just think if they fight 3 times a year, I'm okay with that. I prefer 4, but I'll settle for 3. You know what I mean?
I'll settle for 3. At this point, I'll settle for 2. D-style, like
and I was about to say, like the cash cow of all the cash cows, Mayweather fought twice. So I don't understand with this. All the new method every 16 months is the way to go. Based on what? Name one fighter.
Mayweather fought Canelo that September, and I went to that fight, but he had fought in May that year. Yeah. He fought 4 months before he fought Canelo. I forgot who the fight before was, but he fought 4 months before the Canelo fight. Yeah. If Mayweather fights 4 months before the Canelo fight, you can't give me an excuse for why Errol's sitting on the shelf for 12 months with nothing scheduled. You can't give me an excuse as to why Maul is sitting on the shelf for 2 years with nothing scheduled. He says he's coming back in June. We'll see. And then they'll tell me, well, since he's coming back in June after a 2-year layoff, he needs a get back right fight, right? He needs an easy fight. He needs a tune-up. A tune-up from what?
I want to, if I couldn't, and I want to give a shout out to G Funky and Dave DeWenis, 97 Rough. They did an interview with Samson on G Funky Boxing here on YouTube if you guys want to check it out. Something Samson, there's a lot of things he said that I was scratching my head, to be honest.
Yeah.
But look, I get that he's the manager, he's going to say whatever, but at the same time, it's open season, like to get critiqued. He was being very disingenuous, and it has to be on purpose about Canelo.
I would go further than disingenuous, but
he started saying that Canelo is and by the way, Benavidez' dad has been saying the same thing, right? And I'm going to elaborate further on why I believe it's an issue. Okay, so they were saying things. Well, in this case, Samson. Oh, Canelo. He's I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but he's fighting in Mexico. You know why? Because nobody wants to buy tickets in Vegas. For the Golovkin fight, they had to give away tickets, and they were selling them 2 for 1. And then because there's a new sheriff in town, the new star is Benavidez. Well, facts do not care about your feelings, right? Mm-hmm. They do not care. Forget about me and my opinion. This is not my opinion. This is just facts. How much was that? The third fight? How much was the gate, Calix?
$23 million.
$23 million gate. That is higher than any gate in heavyweight history. Mm-hmm. Okay? Just to put that in perspective, because I think 18 million is a record, okay, for heavyweight. So how many fights in boxing history have gone over 20 20 million at the gate. I understand that there's inflation on that. I get all that. But still, I mean, 23 million. So even if you say, oh, it didn't do as good as the first 2 fights, but yeah, but Canelo's coming off a loss to Bivol. The fight wasn't as hot anymore. Like it was too far off. You know what I mean? I think the trilogy should have happened around the time he first joined the zone. That's when the trilogy should have happened, in my opinion. In fact, HBO was actually open, believe it or not, for a third fight. Even though they were done with boxing, they were open to a third fight with Golovkin and Canelo. But Canelo ended up signing with the zone. A lot of people don't know that. But at the end of the day, a lot of interviewers, and even when Benavidez' dad says it, don't push back when they say this stuff. And I understand they're going to say it, but there's nothing wrong with just saying, well actually, Samsung, it did a pretty good, even though you don't remember the number, like I didn't remember it right now, it actually did a pretty good gate. Like it did, much more than Benavidez planned it. I can tell you that right now, right? So, like, I'm just saying, like just little things like that can go a long way, in my opinion, right? Benavidez' dad just gets free reign, just say whatever he wants, and the media doesn't like push back at all. Like it's amazing to me. I'm not saying be rude. I'm not even saying argue with them. I'm just saying, like it's okay to push a little bit. You know what I mean? Like a little nudge. You know what I mean? Just a little, like, you know what I mean? Just a little bit. But yeah, like I just very disingenuous.
Like when I hear a manager come on and say, I marinated that fight for 5 years, that would have just set me off as a boxing fan. That would have been a trigger for me. I'm sorry. That's why it would be hard for me to do these interviews with managers, because that would just trigger me. It would be like, no. You need to understand something. Like
I understand you don't like that, but I mean,
but also it would have been like, I would have said, is it possible? First of all, like, why would I be empathetic to your fighter for not getting the fight he wants when you're not giving Plant the fight he wants when he wanted it, or something like that, or the fans the fights that they want? You're marinating them. You're saying the quiet part out loud, and that's important. But you have to ask the question, like, is it possible that if you just put Benavidez in the best fights available to him at the time, that 5 years later he would be a star now? 5 years later, Benavidez versus whoever, or Benavidez, if your fighter just behaves the way he was supposed to behave, he has the Canelo fight anyway. But is it possible that your guy is a bigger star now, 5 years later, if you would have managed him that way, instead of taking the bubble wrap?
He would probably argue that he's doing it the right way. I would say.
But you have to ask.
Of course,
because it would at least give fans a different perspective, right? Because fans hear this stuff. I know it. Like, I know these new age fans, they hear this stuff and they say, "Oh, that makes sense. He got more money for his fighter, and our fighter got more money."
You know how I feel about this? I kind of feel like, this is just me. I like when a fighter, like, even goes out of the way to tell their managers or their promoters, I don't give a shit. Like I want this fight.
Canelo.
You know who did that? People don't know this, but Floyd and his people were like, yo, we're done with this building. I want a title shot. Put me in there with Renato Hernandez, right?
2 years in.
Yeah. And what's his name? The Mayweather brother, the one that fought De La Hoya. What's his name again? Jeff Mayweather tells a story that when he was like in an elevator, and I believe he said Larry Merchant. I could be wrong about that, but he was somebody from HBO. When that elevator closed, that they told him, "What are you guys doing? Like, why are you going to throw Mayweather right now with that dude? He's an established champion. You don't want to wait a couple more fights? Mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing?" And they were like, "Look, we just think Floyd's ready, and Floyd wants it. Like the dude wants to fight. What do you want me to do?" Right? And guess what? They were right. He goes in there, he dominates Hernando Hernandez, and he launched his career. Like, let's get to it. You know what I mean?
I feel like it's this new age thing. It's not just boxing. It's a growing number of people don't want to hear that you have to take ridiculous chances in order to get to ridiculous heights. You have to, and you can't separate that process.
Like, thank
so
God.
These fighters who think they can shortcut that process, and their fans who think they can shortcut that process and think they can build some sort of super fight after taking 365 days off.
Yep.
It's not going to work. It's not sustainable. And I got news for the Tank fans and perhaps the Ryan fans is the winner of that fight doesn't become the face of boxing because they didn't build the resume before this fight. Now the door is not closed. They can still do a 180, right? And they can do fight after fight after fight and then become the star. But they're not going to become the face of boxing or anywhere close to it by winning.
You think Ryan Tank? You think they did 23 million at the gate? They didn't. No. You know, so like numbers don't lie. Like people want to say, "Oh, Canelo, he's falling." Look, that Golovkin fight didn't do so good, and I'm like, I remember Michelle Rosado was tweeting that, like, "Oh, it was a flop," and I'm thinking to myself, "Who the hell else is doing?" She said it was a flop at the gate. Who the hell else is doing over 20 million at the gate?
Yeah.
Who else is doing that? Nobody. Maybe it's a flop for Canelo, I guess, but if it's a flop for him, I mean, I'll take that flop any day if I'm any other fighter.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the day.
I believe that was the 23 million one. There was an $18 million gate in there too. So perhaps the first fight was 23 and this was 18, but regardless, 18 to 23, there's one of those two. And those are huge numbers. I mean, those just, and I was out there. I can tell you what I spent to get in the building. It's not good. Like I spent a lot of money.
And I'll tell you, look, obviously, I know I reference him a lot, just mainly because I interviewed him before, but I go back to the Glenn Jennings example. I mean, he believes in Tim Tszyu, obviously. Mm-hmm. Okay? And he makes it very clear. Tim instructs me that he wants to fight the best. Right? That's what I want. Don't even come at me with some like you know what I mean? He made it very clear. If I don't get Charlo because he's injured, get me the next big name. Right? Harrison, yeah, sure, let's do it. Right? You know what I mean? Like it does come down to the fighter. Like it really does, right? Because at the end of the day, the fighter could always behind the scenes like, hey, I'm gonna say I want this guy, but like, you know.
Yeah, alibis.
Yeah. Like, but the action shows me I'm looking at what's happening, right? And I just think, man, like it's gonna take some time, but I think boxing fans need to be reprogrammed to want to see fights. Okay, like they need to be reprogrammed. Like there's boxing fans that think the way it is now is the best way to do it. Like you know what I mean? Because it's the only way they know. Or you're supposed to be inactive for 16 months. That's how you stay healthy. Like, okay,
are you a fighter or are you not?
Like what's going on? Like what do you mean? Like what? Like you know, I remember I had an argument with a dude telling me Gary Russell, the way Gary's doing is the way to do it. I'm like,
remember when we used to laugh about that? Like we used to have the Groundhog Day. Like Gary Russell Jr. popping up was like the groundhog, and now a growing number of fighters are doing that. Now Errol Spence is the groundhog. I mean, matter of fact, it's worse because we haven't seen him in 365 days.
The problem at the end of the day, Calix,
we don't know what the weather in Dallas is like.
At the end of the day, the problem is, and I kind of hate, like, obviously when Paulie says something, it's going to get a lot of attention because that's Paulie Malignaggi. He has a bigger platform. But honest to God, bro, we've been saying the same thing for years before Paulie was even on YouTube. They're overpaying a lot of these fighters before they need to prove themselves. And I actually, the first athlete that I remember saying this about sports in general, about athletes getting paid the big bag before they prove themselves, that they're getting paid off potential. The first athlete I ever heard say this is like the biggest name of all of athletes ever, Michael Jordan. The most marketable fighter ever is saying this. Mm-hmm. Like the most marketable guy in any sport ever he has his own brand. Like his brand is just his logo. It's not even the Nike logo, right? Like Michael Jordan is saying. Now he's mainly talking about basketball, but it's true about all sports. They're gating. You're paying guys off potential, and then guess what? Like they're not going to try as hard to go for greatness on the court because they don't have an incentive to. You're already giving them their own brand shoe. You're already calling them stars and all this stuff. Like you're already doing it for them.
I witnessed it this week, D-Style, and people who follow me on Twitter would see it. Is we went to the Pelicans game. I got my son good seats to go to the play-in game, and we're watching Zion Williamson for a half hour before the game doing windmill dunks, all kind of stuff. And he hasn't played in 45 games. And he says the day before, I can play physically, but mentally I don't feel like I'm there. And it passes. This passes in this era. Mentally, I don't feel ready to play.
Could you imagine?
I will get you in the playoffs. And he's physically ready, and he hasn't played in 45 games, and he hasn't played a complete season in 4 seasons since he got in the NBA. Wow. And he's making.
Does he have a big deal? Does he have like
$1 million a year?
But that's his contract. But does he have like does he have like endorsements and all that already?
He's got endorsements, all of it. That's
just his contract. I could see why a Michael Jordan, right? I could see why am I like, and people, they call out of these old school, like, because fighters do it too, by the way, but they call them haters, and they call them like no, like, look at it from their perspective, guys. They like Michael Jordan, okay, had to be some in the league and prove himself in the league before he got that deal with Nike, okay, like that's just the truth, right? Like that's what he didn't get it. Right out of North Carolina, like shit. That's not what happened. Okay, so when he says things like that, now I don't follow basketball that much, but I'm pretty sure there's people calling him a hater and he's just hating and this and that, and then like when even when Floyd was, it's now this is ironic, but still when Floyd was complaining, all these guys they have all these belts and they call themselves champion, and but. From Floyd's perspective, at least there wasn't like a regular champion, and they didn't have all the extras. You know what I mean? There wasn't any franchise champion and stuff like that. So it's like, it's ironic because of what he said about fighters in the past. But with Lennox, it's like, I don't get it. Like these guys, don't they want to prove don't they want to be undisputed champion? Like I don't get it. Or Roy Jones is like, I don't get why these guys don't they want to prove they're better than their opponent? And people call them haters and they're just hating. What does Haney say? They're just hating because back then they fought for crumbs and now it's a business and we're making a lot of money. And like Haney, you haven't sniffed what Leonard made or Duran made. You haven't sniffed it, brother.
Did you see Errol Spence? Somebody's criticizing Errol Spence.
Duran spent more on cocaine than your purses. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Errol Spence literally told somebody yesterday on Twitter, strip me. He's saying, strip me. If you got a problem with it, strip me. He's got 3 belts. He's sitting.
You ain't gonna strip.
He's holding up the division for 365 days, sitting on 3 belts, sitting on a top 10 pound for pound ranking, which I think at some point, man, these bodies, these publications need to start taking these fighters out of their top 10 pound for pound if they're going a year plus with nothing scheduled. Just pull them. And you at least have that power. But when you're sitting on 3 belts in a sexy division and you're not fighting, I don't understand how boxing fans don't have an issue with that. Like there are other dudes in those rankings who deserve that shot. And this dude is just sitting on those belts.
They're just sitting on those belts, bro, and it's unfortunate. And when Spence says that, by the way, he's basically saying you ain't gonna do shit anyway. So they ain't gonna do shit to me. So keep complaining. That's what I'm hearing.
They're laughing, and the managers are laughing at us because they're openly saying, "I marinate a fight for 5 years.
We're gonna marinate it," and we got boxing fans saying, "Oh, totally, that makes total sense." And I say it all the time on Twitter. I see it all. I see it all the time, bro. I see it all the time. Like I can't understand it. You know what I mean? I just don't. Like it's we as fans need to see things from the consumer perspective.
Yes.
Okay. Look, I'm sure. I'm sure that a lot of businesses, if they will run like boxing, will probably make some profits here and there, but they obviously don't run it that way for a reason, right? There's a reason like boxing's model is not like, name me one model anywhere in anything that follows a boxing business model. I just want somebody to name me like what business that is. Name it to me. I'm all ears. I just want to know like who follows that model.
Just to come full circle, there is a guy who took on 2 challenges that a lot of other guys didn't want to. Like I said, Philip Hergovich, 7 guys turned him down before. 1 guy stepped up and said, I'll fight him. I'll fight him. His name was Zhilei Zhang. And he arguably beats him and shows himself well enough to where Joe Joyce's team points and says, we'll fight that guy. And he fights Joe Joyce, who many people view as a Jason type character. And a lot of fighters didn't want to fight because he's throwing 80-something punches per round as a heavyweight, as a pressure fighter. And Zhilei Zhang fights him and he beats him. And now, once again, you go through the fire. You're willing to do things that other fighters aren't willing to do, and you succeed in it. And now you're sitting in a position where you can start to demand things, where things open up for you, and you can point and say, I want this fight in China. Sure, I'll do the Hergovich rematch. Sure, I'll do the Joyce rematch. Possibly a Tyson Fury fight falls in his lap, or an Anthony Joshua fight falls in his lap. And that's what taking chances does, right? You'll have managers out there saying, it's not a smart move to put Zhang in there with Hergovich, right? And the Hergovich fight ends up getting him the Joyce fight. It's not smart for us to fight Hergovich because 7 other guys turned that fight down. One of those other 7 guys could have ended up fighting Hergovich, beating him or coming close to it, and then getting the Joe Joyce fight. But Zhang was the one to do it, and he ended up getting the fight. Funny how that worked, right?
Do you remember? I did this video a long time ago, by the way, but checks and balances in boxing, right? I don't. Everyone needs to play their role.
I remember it.
And I said, boxing has this triangle business where like they totally cut off the consumer, right? And the consumer's told, oh, you don't know what's best for business. Shut up, right? So like the promoters and managers, like they're working with the networks and the fighters, right? Like, and they're like, where like it's supposed to include the consumer, right? There needs to be a checks and balance. Yes. I'll be the first one to say you don't want the mob of the masses to dictate everything, right? Mm-hmm. Because if it's up to the boxing fan, they'll have these guys fighting for free for all they care. Like, you know what I mean? I get that. So I understand that. I understand that there needs to be managers and there's a place for them. There needs to be promoters. There needs to be sanctioning bodies. But none of that works if the boxing fan is put on the wayside, because you see the effects of it. You start seeing the fight grounds half empty. You start seeing like Bam Rodriguez, who's supposed to be a superstar at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Fighting in a half-empty arena in a primary Hispanic city of San Antonio, which has like over 1 million inhabitants. Like, there's no reason. I think it's more than that, like 2 million. Like, there's no reason it shouldn't be sold out. You know what I mean? But it is what it is, and that's what I got.
Appreciate everybody tuning in on this Sunday night. I'll be back here tomorrow evening, so make sure to tune in to D-Style Boxing. We'll hit y'all up later. ACPX. Peace. God bless.